If you are parenting neurodivergent kids, you already know that the best gifts are the gifts that meet your kids' sensory needs or give them a safe way to move their bodies. These are the sensory and movement gifts that have actually lasted in our house and still get used week after week. Raising neurodivergent kids is messy, beautiful, and a lot. I'm Mary Ellen Yates, and this is Growing Together, Neurodiversity at Home. Let's figure it out together. Okay, let's start with sensory gifts. The first one I'd like to mention are blankets. They're relatively inexpensive and usually pretty easy to find. So my kids like two types of blankets. They like either the really fuzzy blankets or they like weighted blankets. Now, fuzzy blankets are pretty inexpensive. They're easy to find. Some kids that don't like the fuzzy blankets, you can get the ones that are more minky and smooth. There's some blankets that even have one side that's fuzzy and one side that is smooth, and then you could test it out to see which one your kid prefers. And then for a weighted blanket, the one that I have is a decent size, so my kids fit under it. It has a dinosaur pattern. And the one I have, I'm able to machine wash. My kids like to bring their blankets all around the house, and so I wanted to be able to keep them clean. So mine have these beads inside that make it heavy. We've had ours for probably at least 4 years, and besides the outside cloth looking a little faded over time from washing it, it's still perfectly intact. We had any issues with it falling apart or breaking down or anything. And then you can also get the smaller size ones too if you want something that's more of a lap blanket. That works well for school time or other times when they're needing to maybe sit still more and have the comfort for that as well. And speaking of school time, one item that I really like in our schoolroom that my kids have used for years is those sensory discs or wobble cushions, and they have little nubs on them. My kids like to stand on them and shift their weight, or they like to sit on them and shift their weight. And then the nubs give them a little more sensory input. Another thing that can be good for times when they might need to sit still a little more would be koosh balls or similar ones that are called string balls. They just have all these strings attached. Those usually last pretty well. And then you can also get those squish balls. Some of them have stuff inside them. They last pretty well, but I do have to say eventually the ones that have some kind of fluid inside them, they have broken on us. But my kids really liked the sensation of being able to squish it. So it's something you have to decide if it's worth bringing into your home or not. And along this line, this could be any kind of fidget toy that you find that works really well for your kids. Some people really like things that they can squeeze. Some people really like things that they can pull. Some that like things that they can spin on their fingers and spin around. Last Christmas, we got noise-canceling earmuffs or headphones for my oldest son, because he can be pretty sensitive to loud noises and gets distracted easily. He will wear his headphones when he's doing school, goes to church, or when his siblings are just being really loud and he's having a hard time with the extra noise, he'll put them on. And I'm thinking about getting more for my other kids, especially my second son. He might benefit from the reduction in noise too. And if you have an older kid that doesn't really like people seeing them wearing headphones, you could try earbuds. There's a couple popular ones out there. I've tried Loop and Waze, and I'm still trying them out. I haven't decided how I feel about them. I like with the Loop earbuds that you can put them on this magnetic string. So then if you're not wearing them in your ears, you can put it on your neck. I feel like they're easier to keep track of. Both brands have like these little carrying cases you can use too. I just find that they're super easy to lose if I do that. And some other popular ones that are good for all ages are kinetic sand. There's tons of different colors out there and different kits you can get that have different molds that you can use to play with the kinetic sand. And then also Play-Doh. Play-Doh is great for building up hand strength, especially for those young learners before they're starting to write. And you can create all types of things. And the nice thing about them is that it's reusable. You just put them back in their containers and you can reuse it again. And it's the same thing with the sand. If your kids didn't scatter it throughout your house, you can also use that again too. So I do have to say we keep those locked up and they're only allowed to be used at our kitchen table when there's an adult that's going to sit there and supervise. And then some sensory items that I prefer to use outside instead of inside. Those things would be a water table or a sandbox, and you can find some that have both or one. I do have to say, if you live in the South and ants are an issue, sandboxes can be pretty tricky if they are on the ground. When we lived in Germany, we never had issues with ants, and my kids used their sandbox all year round. But since we've moved to Georgia, we've had issues with ants trying to make homes in our sand. So elevated items tend to work better. Or having it in a box. And then little figurines to go with the water and the sand is also helpful. My son really enjoys those cylinders of soldiers or little dinosaurs or little animals and stuff. That's always fun in the sands, or jewels. We did a birthday party for one of our sons, and we got pirate treasure and would bury it under the sand for them to collect. And those smaller items you could put in the stocking stuffers to go with the bigger sand or water table. And then with that too, you can get buckets and scoops, mesh colanders, all different types of things to play with the water or sand. And also something that I really like to do outside for sensory are water beads. They are these hard little balls, and then you add them to water and they slowly grow to a decent size. I like to do these outside because when you squish them, they're like grapes in their texture and stuff, and they can get all over your house. Also, if the little beads spill in your house, it's going to be like walking on Legos or something. It's not very pleasant. If you can find a place to secure them, they are awesome because they're fun. It's a great option. That could also be a stocking stuffer too. Now let's talk about movement toys. So my top picks for movement toys are an outdoor trampoline. We have a 14-foot one in our backyard, and you want to have your safety nets and all that. Ours does have a little slide that goes down too, and then a little ladder to go up. My kids like to use it all year round, and I do notice that the homes that have a trampoline tend to have more neighbor kids, so you have to decide if that's a good thing or a bad thing. All my kids use it from 1 to 11. Obviously, you have to be more careful with the littler ones. But they do flips and they bounce, and they can burn a lot of energy without destroying my home trying to bounce off of all of my furniture. And then my next pick would be a scooter. We usually get a scooter around when our kids turn around 2 years old. The scooters that I like have 2 wheels in the front and 1 wheel in the back, so it helps with balancing it more. It doesn't fall over as easily. And then I like one that allows them to shift their weight and then it turns it for them. And then I also like one that has a smaller base for their feet. For our oldest two, we got our scooters in Germany. But for our daughter, when we came back to Georgia, we got one in the States, and the one we got her was too long. And so the disadvantage of this is it is really hard for a young kid that is a beginning rider to then try to pull their leg all the way back to the brake. It just made her feel really nervous, and she would usually just jump off of it all the time instead of using her brake to slow down. And so I highly recommend getting something that is smaller so that it is easier for them to maneuver and brake. And then also, if they cannot reach that brake, they are going to use their shoes to brake, and those shoes are not going to last long. My kids can go super fast through our neighborhood with it. Scooters are easier than bikes because you're only using one side of the body to do all the work, and the other one's just kind of standing there. That helps kids, especially if kids have a hard time with using both sides of their body. Then after scooters, we like bikes. You can use a bike from when you're little until adulthood. We like bikes that have training wheels attached, and then you can remove the training wheels once they're balanced enough to use 2 wheels. We've tried balance bikes in the past, and my kids had a hard time with them. We had friends that swore by the balance bike that their kids learned to ride really well. They just went right from a balance bike to a regular 2-wheel bike. But for my kids, it's harder for them to coordinate, and my second son would just walk with the bike between his legs. And when he was walking with it, he wasn't getting that muscle pedaling, that pushing, which is pretty hard while you're trying to balance yourself. So for us, training wheels work better. We've also gotten my kids roller skates and skateboards before. They enjoy playing with them, but I don't see them using them nearly as much as they do a scooter or a bike. I feel like those are way more versatile and you can get farther with them. And for inside the home, I would use some kind of climbing system, like a pickler triangle. We have a triangle, and then we had this round thing that had little bars that you can use to climb up. And then we have a board that can use as a slide, or you can flip it over and use it as a little climbing rock thing. And we got ours from Kohl's, and I haven't been able to find a comparable one to that one online. The one that we got says that it holds up to 100 pounds. And since my oldest is only in the 60-pound range, all of our kids can fit on it. All my kids use the climbing stuff in our living room, from the baby to the 11-year-old. My second son especially uses it a lot because he paces and he likes to climb as he paces. So that's a safe place for him to climb. It's collapsible, so we can put it away against the wall, especially if we're cleaning or whatever, and then bring it out when we want to use it. It's also great as the support for a fort. They often like to put blankets over it and then go inside our little cozy spot too. Some other fun things that you can use as add-ons would be those exercise mats. We have those foldable exercise mats that they'll just put down when they're doing a lot of flips and things like that. So these are some sensory and movement toys that have lasted years in our home. And while these toys are a lot of fun, they also help keep them regulated and give them the sensory input that they need and make our days way calmer as well. I'll link the items that I mentioned in the description below. If you missed my video on gifts that actually last, I'll link that in the description as well. And I'm Mary Ellen Yates, and this is Growing Together Neurodiversity at Home.